Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final episode of Season 1 of Timelines Unbound. In the last episode, this whole coalition war happened between these guys, all against the Vikings. And the Vikings are kind of in an ally deficit of sorts, and now they need to go find some allies. So, let's use a white Star of David, sure. So, this whole emergency alliance needs to be formed. The World Destroyers join in because they don't like these guys, or these guys, really. And Lochnagoria doesn't join any. Slovakia is unaffiliated. Rome joins in because they're a loyal ally, but that does provoke these guys to join in on a coalition side, which is not good. Anyways, the Frances, in spite of Britain, they both join. So yeah, this is the war that's been set up. A few months go by without much happening, and then finally the Vikings begin retaking land on the coast over here, making large advancements now that they're actually ready for the war. Holland begins invading North France. They aren't too successful because the other France's army is arriving soon, which happens, and they're stalemated right here. Orange France lands on the capital of Cornwall and immediately takes it and cuts off this area over here. They also land over here in Portsmouth and begin taking. Oh, they also land over here in Portsmouth and begin occupying land over here and approaching the capital of Britain. Irish, they leave the war. They don't want to get involved in this. And East Ireland stays in the war, though, because their vassals have been attacked, and they will not allow that to happen. Do a naval landing and retake this from the French, and now this capital is once again surrounded. Some of these new religious groups begin attacking major cities. The city is completely converted, and rebels rise up, and so do these ones. The origins of this religion are kind of unknown. It's mostly a reformation of sorts, early reformation, if you will. These guys also begin taking land, and eventually they do occupy some of these cities south of the capital. Speaking of which, Portugal takes this opportunity to occupy the city in northern Castile. The Vikings are kicked mostly out of this peninsula, but they do have some holdings up here. The Vikings successfully kick out the Swedes from their northern part and finally take them from the walls. They then climb up these walls and start shooting down upon the Swedish troops along this border, and they're very successful, so they begin jumping over the walls. They begin jumping over the walls and occupying some of these border territories with a large army. And yeah, these walls have been ridden, and Sweden's capital is now under risk, the Vikings. As for Prepholm, they're rapidly losing land because there's not much up here. And there's kind of like a gold outpost here, which has not been taken yet. It has heavy defenses on it. The Vikings also make a naval landing over here, take all of Åland and Jutland. The World Destroyers also land in Prepholm, preparing to take over their former lands over here. And they have much success because the Prepholmers just kind of swept in and took it kind of fast, and now they don't have anything to defend. This new alliance that's kind of existed for a while, but I never added it to map forms. It's between Byzantium. It's between Byzantium, Cyprus, and Egypt. Speaking of Egypt, Speaking of Egypt, they finally peace out with Israel and take all this land over here. Byzantine troops start invading Israel through military access through Kurdistan over here, and the Thessaloniki Pact kind of joins on this. Egypt doesn't really do anything because they just fought a war. Anyways, they start sacking these cities over here, kind of just annihilating Israel's economy, and ultimately Israel surrenders very, very fast. Looking at the peace deal, a new pro-Byzantine state is kind of created over here, and Israel is forced to move their capital all the way down to this random Sinai city. And yeah, they're going to have to be forced to move into Arabia now since they can't really go anywhere else. Up to the Caspian Sea. There's also some internal conflicts happening that you can probably read on the wiki once again. And on the border here, there's even more tension rising between them and the Siberians. The Chinese expand north even more into some of this crappier land around Mongolia. A rebellion happens in the southern Malay Peninsula and up to here. Alban India looks something like this. They're expanding eastways to get to the Bengal Sea. They didn't really expand this colony down here, though. There's also a sort of Indian Ocean trade agreement that I forgot to lore about, so yeah, take that as you will. Catalan begins taking some of their land back. Catalan also expands into all these lands over here, up into Myanmar and Burma. The Tolerants also start expanding east a little bit more and fighting some of the Mongolic peoples. A Caucasian country does nothing. The Icelanders and the Greenlanders reach a sort of agreement to divide the eastern part, the island, back to Iceland. The Svalbarders, though, are not as civil, but they begin settling some islands, like this one in Russia. Novgorod, they settle all of this land right here. Not Novgorod, Muscovy. I don't know what I'm saying. Muscovy looks something like this now. We're probably going to have to start calling them Russia soon. The Byzantines take over basically the rest of Anatolia, because nobody else wanted to. And the second part of their deal finishes, and they've purchased the rest of Anatolia from Cyprus, who is still booming. Don't worry, they're still very powerful. This new little state in Israel here they're having a little bit of trouble keeping stuff together because they were devastated by the Byzantine invasion. So they kind of just agreed to become a Cypriot vassal so long as they get investments into their land. Eastern Cornwall falls, and they begin invading Wales, taking the capital. The French are very powerful at this very moment. They also begin surrounding the capital down here in Hampshire. The Vikings invade these islands for about the 5th time in history. They also make a landing over here and begin attacking these northern parts of Scotland, taking this city. To colonize all this land up here very swiftly because there's basically nothing there. Finally, the city falls, and the gold supply of Prepholm is basically gone. They connect up along the coast of Finland and take that city. However, the Prepholmer mercenaries have taken back eastern parts of Finland, also retake their city, and start pushing back against the Vikings with their mercenaries. They even cut off this part here. The Swedes are kicked out of the Vikings completely, and the Vikings begin invading the Swedes even harder. However, their invasion over here is not successful because they moved their forces over there. Some Ironlander forces retake this province over here, Jutland. Ironland themselves begin invading from the coast of Jutland into the Viking coast. The Prepholm mercenaries finally kick the Vikings out. Now they just kind of have to take their coast back. The Danube people kind of take all of these provinces over here. They also do a swift invasion of the southern parts of Hjerte over here. There's a minor rebellion in southern Slovakia, much to their disliking. Rome is very swiftly invaded by the orange people. And the Gromers take this land over here. The Castilians finally surrender to their invaders, and the peace treaty is very harsh. This nation over here gets a very large portion of land. Portugal converts to the new blue religion, and Spain themselves stay Ordinist, but the southern half of their capital is now taken by the Blues, and these guys up here also get a hefty chunk of land. Portugal's colony doesn't like this because they're devout and Ordinist, so they break away. They will now be this color, because why not? Okay, that's a very ugly color, but we'll roll with it. Only some progress is made in England, and the French are kicked out of England after the army is fully mobilized. They also begin taking back some of Wales, some of eastern Cornwall. The Viking advance into Scotland is completely destroyed. However, they do keep control over these islands. Ironland helps evacuate the southern parts of here and takes it back, and the advance up here is halted, and they're eventually kicked out. The Prepholmers begin invading the Vikings once again and make big land grabs because this is mostly unforted lands. The first Viking city is finally taken by the Ironlanders, and all this land up here falls very easily. Yeah, it's not looking too good for the Vikings. They're finally kicked out of the peninsula. The World Destroyers leave the alliance and peace out with the Prepholmers, and Rome has to be redrawn once again. After this, a new alliance of sorts is set up, also known as the Heirs of Rome. Okay, this is the wrong map then. An alliance called the Heirs of Rome is set up. The Cyans join this. These guys join it. These little green guys here join it too. Pink Rome joins it. More like Florence now, really. Sicily does join it. And Orange Rome, being, the owner of Rome, are crowned as the emperor. I don't know how I'm going to represent this, though. Alright, here's how we're going to represent it. They have a little bit of shadow on it, and that represents them being the emperor. The Gromers don't join it because they want no association with Rome, and they're a little bit too big, really. Dalmatian nation over here also kind of signs an economic deal with the new Italian bloc. I don't know what we're going to call it. I guess we'll just call it the Roman Alliance. Popeyes begins colonizing southern France because, well, it's been uncontrolled for a very, very long time. Back to the war, the Swedes finally bypass the wall by just, going around it. Okay, they're on the Vassalate. These walls are destroyed by the Swedes, and they finally take this city back. By the way, this isn't just the Swedes doing all this. This is, Irelanders, Germans, Hollanders. Holland is kicked out of northern France and eventually just kind of agrees to leave the alliance because they don't care anymore. The Germans do some coastal raiding in Viking land and take these cities down south. Cornwall is finally liberated, and so is its capital, and so is Wales. Scotland takes advantage of the weakened Scotland takes advantage of the weakened Vikings and takes their islands back. So now the Vikings are presented with a choice. They can either, quit and surrender, or they can just, keep fighting because that's their thing. That's their thing. Keep fighting because they're the Vikings, and they choose death. They keep fighting. 3 bloody battles take place across this area over here near Oslo. The German march upon this Western Viking city is very tribulous, and eventually they do take. The Scots set up a little naval blockade right here, and finally they make a landing down here, which is meeting some of the heaviest casualties in the war because this is one of the densest areas in the world right now. The Vikings do not like this, so what do they begin to do? They begin to send some plagued rats. Yes, they send their plagued rats down into the enemy alliance. Yeah, there's been a plague developing over here for the past few hundred years, and the Vikings haven't told anybody about it because they were kind of suffering. And in doing so, their capital was weakened, but also their enemies are now weakened by the rats who are spreading this disease. Anyways, the Scots make good advances down here, but when they reach the capital, they all start getting sick and dying. So their advance up north is kind of slowed. Anyways, the Ironlanders move up along the coast and finally meet east over here with the Prepholmers. Together, kick the Vikings out. This newly acquired land up here is also taken by the Prepholmers. And yeah, it's not looking too good for the Vikings. They only have 5 major cities left. And their only ally is, yep, they just left. So there's only one other thing that can really happen. Over 1 million casualties, and 20 years later, the war finally comes to a close after just heavy casualties, really. Mostly Viking peoples living in the capital area, and soldiers invading the capital area, which took 3 sieges to take. And eventually the Vikings, they do surrender. And now we have to look at the peace deal. Gothenburg takes all of these provinces around this bay area over here. Additionally, they take all of these lands up to here from the Vikings. A new nation is established up here. There's also another nation here. Denmark also becomes a fully independent nation. This pink nation here also becomes independent. Their capitals are here and here. And finally, one right here. Yeah, today was not a good day for the Vikings, but it was kind of deserved after all they did, especially the early use of chemical warfare, which is not very cool. Not cool. Prepholm also colonizes some areas over here and up here. Nebraska also expands significantly. And yeah, that's kind of it for this episode. Probably the largest event yet was the collapse of the Vikings through that very large coalition war. And it's going to set the stage for a very long time because there was a very, very large power difference between the Vikings and I don't know who the second strongest nation was. Probably Muscovy. And now Muscovy is definitely the strongest and has the most opportunity to invade. Thank you for joining this episode of Timelines Unbound, and I'll see you in the first episode of Season 2. Goodbye.